All right, now we're starting to get somewhere. We've got the D and the E and the D of distance. It's just critical that you know how to center your shot pattern distance-wise over the targets that we're going to start now in this video picking for you. And the first step of actually selecting targets in the Decade acronym is C, correct target. By the time we finish this, it might seem like an awful lot, and at the end of the day, it is. Most players, the Jack Nicklauses, the Tiger Woods of the world that are considered great course managers, it took them years, if not decades, to learn how to play this game correctly. We're teaching you how to do it over the series of 4 or 5 hours of video content. We're cracking the code, so yes, it seems like a lot, but you're learning a lot. And as always, the real challenge, the real reason that golf is so hard to learn how to play correctly is the fact that it's really the only sport in the world that's not played on a uniform court. Every basketball court is the same, every tennis court is the same. Most other sports are practiced and taught on the field of competition, which just obviously isn't the case with golf. Let's take a look at number 18 at St. Andrews here. This green is 50 yards wide. Now let's bring in number 5 at Pebble Beach. This green's only 17 yards wide. Quite obviously, you can't give the same generic advice of middle of the green or get more aggressive on these two holes, and so this is where the traditional playing lesson typically falls on its face. The advice on number 5 would be middle of the green or hopefully even left center of the green, regardless of where the hole location is. And that advice just isn't going to help you very much on number 18 at St. Andrews. I think it's simply amazing to bring in this year's PGA Tour images from ShotLink from the AT&T Pro-Am. The first 3 rounds, the hole location is in the exact same spot since they play 3 different courses in the rotation for the Pro-Am. So this yellow flag right here is the same hole location the first 3 rounds, and the blue pin in the back right is the final round hole location. You can clearly see they're aiming, they're centering their shot pattern on the PGA Tour left of these hole locations. But the question is, how much? You could quite easily just aim way left over there by the cart path and not hit any shots in the water, but that would be too conservative. So really picking the correct amount to aim away from the water is what we're really trying to accomplish. So the first step in picking that target is C, correct target, but actually it does start back at D, distance. How long is the shot? That's the first thing we need to consider with how aggressive or conservative, again, I don't like those words, but it's the only really usable language we can have here. How long is the shot, and as a result, how close to the edge of the green can we aim based on that information? Because again, the size of our shot pattern is almost directly related to the length of the shot. This is what I call the baseline number, and it winds up creating this thing that I call the forbidden ring. So if we're 140 yards, this is now number 10 at Carlton Woods, where Will won the U.S. Junior technically, and if we are 140 yards coming in from the bottom of the screen this way, if we're 140 yards, this baseline number is 7. And what that means is we can't aim within 7 yards of any edge of the green, front, back, left side, or right side, for starters because of the length of the shot. If I look at a 200-yard shot, that number becomes 10, so I can't aim within 10 yards of any edge of the green, and obviously I'm implying this green is roughly 20 yards wide, so it winds up becoming just this little sliver running right up the middle of the green. Coming back here to the 140-yard side, if a pin was 4, 5, or 6 yards from the edge of the green on this left side, our target would be 7 yards from the edge of the green. So if the pin is 4, 5, or 6, we actually have the same target. Once the pin is 7 yards from an edge of the green, then we are aiming directly at it. If the pin is 8 or 9 or 10 yards from the edge of the green, again, now it's falling within this go zone, so you get to aim directly at it. And now working from the other side, if the pin were 4, 5, or 6 yards from the right edge of the green, we would be aiming 7 yards from the right edge. So you're always working your target selection off of the edge of the green, the side of the green that the hole is located closest to. Without getting too mathy, that's because I quantified the size of the shot pattern, the standard deviations technically, of my shot pattern as at the time a +6 handicap, and then I changed those shot patterns to reflect a mid-70s shooter, an 80 shooter. I made the shot patterns larger and smaller in order to see if strategy would change, and it basically stays the same. Shot patterns are so large, even for plus handicaps, that it just isn't that big of a difference. Obviously, it's a pretty big difference between a +6 and a 10 handicap, but the math really reflects that they can have essentially the same target. It's the same optimal target, and then they obviously just need to get better physically in order to start shooting lower scores. But target selection overall is basically the same. I think that's a really difficult point and idea for a lot of people to accept, and there's a spot probably next month where I'll illustrate it on number 4 at Stanford's course, a par 3, and it'll really hit home as to why target selection can actually be the same for a great player and an 80 shooter. It'll really make sense, but just trust me, for now, this is pretty much generic target selection as long as you can break about 85. Like I say, this Foundations course is designed for the 2 to 15 handicap-ish type player, and if you pick targets this way, you're going to do just fine. So you can see these baseline numbers in the middle of the screen, and technically, yes, it's just 5% of the length of the shot. If you take the tens digit, 8, divide it by 2 is a 4, 180 yards, 18 is the tens digit out here, divided by 2 is 9. If you do that math, you'll come up with the baseline number for how far you need to be aiming from the edge of the green. Again, for starters. So either take a picture of this screen right here or jot the notes down in a yardage book cover, something like that, or again, just be prepared to divide the tens digit by 2. That's actually all there is for C, correct target. And while that might not seem like much, it is step 1 of choosing a math-based target to center your shot pattern over. If we bring back in number 18 from St. Andrews and number 5 from Pebble Beach, let's look at the implications of what the baseline number does on those two holes. Number 18 at St. Andrews is 360 yards on the scorecard. Obviously, there's some guys on the PGA Tour that during the Open Championship almost drive the green or get it right up around it. But let's just say you're Joe Amateur playing it and you hit a 260-yard drive, leaving yourself 100 yards. Well, the tens digit is a 10. Half of that is 5. So we can't aim our shot any less than 5 yards from any edge of the green. So what that would wind up looking like is, obviously, this green is 50 yards wide, like I was saying earlier, 5 yards from any edge of the green. So we've got 5 yards from the right edge, 5 yards from the front edge. Obviously, this green is massive, and so what I use, just going to go ahead and illustrate all of this for you. I use this snipping tool. I use a PC. I use a snipping tool whenever I'm creating these images, and I can take a snip, and basically, as I was showing, there's 5 yards. This is obviously freehanding, so it's not going to be the best. 5 yards from any edge of the green. So any pin, if I'm 100 yards, any pin that's in this area right here, I'm aiming directly at the pin. This is one thing that sometimes, even though it seems crazy, it comes up quite often, so people do get confused by this. Once the hole is located further from the edge of the green than the baseline number and technically the modifiers that we'll get to in a little bit, the sum of those, if the pin is further from the edge of the green than those numbers indicate, then you are aiming directly at the pin. Sometimes people ask me, like, well, what if the pin is 10 yards from the edge of the green and the baseline number is 5? Do I aim 5 yards left of the pin? No, you aim directly at that pin. This is the forbidden ring that you can't aim at, and anything else, you get to aim your shot directly at the hole. Now, when we come over here to number 5 at Pebble Beach, again, I'm just in Google Earth, and I'm going to try to show you a little bit more of the functionality of how this works, but obviously this is number 5 right here, and I'm just going to scroll in, which I don't know why it is, but it starts to automatically take you into 3D, and then you've got to hold the control button down and get it back over it proportionally. Keep on zooming in, and here we go. So this is number 5. Oops, and actually there I've got the control down and the scroll wheel turns it from side to side. Going to come in just a little bit tighter here. And now we've got number 5. I click up in the top corner, there's a draw icon, measurements, 0 yards. So when I come over here, this par 3 plays about 200 yards on the PGA Tour. So we would want to come 10 yards from the right edge of the green. And then we'd also want to be 10 yards from the left edge of the green. Oh, well, wait a second. This green isn't 20 yards wide. That's a problem. This would be the one like I was showing earlier with that 200-yard shot where it turns into a sliver running right up the middle of the green. That's exactly what happens in this situation where the green is more narrow than the hole requires for just the baseline number alone, let alone the fact that we've got this water hazard over here, which again, that's going to be part of Analyze in just a second. But for the time being, let's just pretend that this is a bunker over here, or rough, just anything. It's just not a penalty hazard. If the green isn't wide enough for you to aim a certain amount away from the edge of the green, then once you get to the middle of the green, you just stop. So, to bring back in the snipping tool again, if I take an image of this, my target, again, assuming this water hazard wasn't there, my target would be somewhere on this line, regardless of where the hole actually is. So if the hole is here, my target would be right here. If the hole is here, my target would be right here. If the hole is here, my target would be right here, all the way around the green. My target would be falling somewhere on this line that directionally is in the middle of the green. I think I'm going to leave it right there actually for C, correct target. I, as I'm sure you can tell, have a tendency to start just reiterating the same thing over and over again because I'm trying to just reinforce the idea. I'm going to let you do that by watching the videos more often rather than me saying the same thing, so that way you can go at your own pace. Next up, we're going to talk Analyze, which is probably the most complex step of Decade. So in this Foundations course, we're only going to touch on a couple of the points, and then this is what I've really, whenever I have given playing lessons with juniors specifically in person, these are the steps that I really break up over a few months. And so this is the part that I'm really going to focus on slowing down.